Whew. Hmm. Hello, Judd here. Got something a little different for you today. No thunderstorms. This is the adventure of my refrigerator. Last night I posted a notice on Facebook that, dang, after 34 years my used refrigerator has died, which was quite a shock to me and quite a problem on a Sunday night. So I spent this morning, running to the local used appliance stores around here, and my go-to guy wasn't there anymore. The shop was gone. It's closed. He's gone. I don't know where he went. So I went to another couple that I looked up, and they didn't have anything that was near the size I wanted. My refrigerator is 55 inches tall and 16 cubic feet. So after traveling up to Crystal River and then out to the other side of Crystal River and then back to Home Depot and finding nothing that came near to what I needed, and I came home, I looked up on online, Lowe's, and they didn't have anything. I looked up in general online and nobody had anything. The only thing that was close to mine was one that was 57 inches tall but was only 7 cubic feet. And then you go to 66 and taller to get up to anywhere near the cubic footage I had. My refrigerator is perfect for me. It fits me just right. The freezer's just the right size for what I keep frozen. The refrigerator is just the size for what I keep in the refrigerator. It works perfectly for me. And I can't find anything. They don't make it anymore. They simply do not make it anymore. And so at the last minute I said, and looking at $700 minimum for something that was going to mess up my whole kitchen design, you know, shelves and stuff like that, it just wasn't going to fit. I'd have to rebuild. I got the bright idea, well, hell, call a repairman. So I called the repairman. I called the first one, and I got a message to call him back next Monday if I wanted to get on his waiting list. So I called the next one, and he answered the phone. And I said, my refrigerator died last night. He says, okay. He says, that's too bad. I said, yeah. He says, you gonna be home? I said, yeah. He says, I'll be there in a couple hours. Much nicer response. I like this response much more. He said he was gonna be out in 2 hours. It ended up being about 3.5 hours. But while I was waiting for him, I decided I'd better clean this thing because it was filthy. It hadn't been cleaned for 34 years because I just don't do that. And underneath the floor hadn't been cleaned for 20 years since I put it there. So I spent 2.5 of those hours thoroughly cleaning the refrigerator and the floor beneath and around it where he would have to work. I wanted to present him with a clean space to work in. And anyway, so he came in, very nice guy. I highly recommend him. If you're in Homosassa and you need appliance repair, Charlie, that's your man. I've got it pulled out so we can get at it real easily, front and back, and he checks out a few things, checks this, that, and the other thing. So, there's my refrigerator. Now, while I was waiting for the guy to show up, which took a couple hours, I used that time to totally clean the thing, and the floor underneath it, which, you know, after 34 years, it needed it. The floor, 20 years of the refrigerator. And you can hear it's running. It's very quiet, but it's running. And what happened was, you know that old adage about hit it with a hammer, and if that don't work, get a bigger hammer? Well, it was this thing, which I did hit, but my hammer wasn't big enough. He had a bigger hammer. So he's got that working, but he said, you know, if it goes once, it's going to go again, so he's going to get me a replacement for that. Not actually a replacement because this is obsolete, they don't make them anymore, but there's a replacement part he can get to bypass that, that'll do the same job. So he's got to order that. That's going to take 3 days to get in here. That's 60 bucks. It was 90 bucks to get him out here. It'll be another 20 when he comes back. So basically, what, 150, 170? Yeah, about 170 as opposed to like $700 was the cheapest replacement I could find, and that was the wrong size, and I would have had to rebuild my kitchen to fit it. So I get to keep my refrigerator, which is I asked him how old he thought it was. He guessed 60. Then he said, oh no, 50. And so I eventually told him I've had it for 34 years, but it was used. I don't know how old it was after that. It was built in Yugoslavia, which is better than the ones built in China, which is what you're getting with every other refrigerator now, because no matter what brand name is on it, they're all built in China, and they last for 3 years. My refrigerator is now working and cooling, and my water will turn to ice. My ice cream, I don't know if that turns back into ice cream, because I got 2 quarts in there, so we'll see. And fortunately, I cooked up my last piece of chicken, and it never got that warm in the refrigerator. It never got above 40 in the refrigerator, so I don't think I really lost anything. So $170 to get my 34-year-old used refrigerator running again, and it's going to go for another 34 years. And whoever said I got my money's worth, you're wrong, because this should last forever, because that's how things should be built. Now I want to tell you a little background on my refrigerator, aside from the fact that I bought it used in 1990, and there's a story behind that. I'm from Boston, and we used to have to go into Boston fairly often. I was actually in Weymouth, in the suburbs, and we'd have to drive into Boston. My mother wouldn't drive on the highway, so we took the street roads. And going in on the street roads, there was a sort of significant point at which you more or less entered Boston, called Neponset Circle. And there was a big, well, the highway was going over there, there was a big bridge, there was a big circle, and on the perimeter of that circle was this big store with a big neon sign, Sozio's Appliances. So that became a very significant landmark for me in my very young years, Sozio's, because I knew at that point we'd left civilization and entered the city. We'd left the burbs, which was, Weymouth, Quincy, Wollaston, North Quincy, and you entered Neponset, which was more part of Boston, the wild territory. And at this point, I didn't know people actually lived in the city. I just thought they went to work there and then went home. And I was very young. Wow. So anyway, Sozio's became embedded in my mind, almost like people have the city service sign for Kenmore Square. Sozio's became something like that for me. Now fast forward to about 50 years later, when I buy my first house in Revere, which is on the North Shore of Boston, and there's a lot of rotaries in Revere too. We have a lot of rotaries in eastern Massachusetts. And on that rotary, I've just gone to Revere, I've moved from Somerville, I've gone up to Revere, I'm driving around looking for things, getting oriented, and rebuilding this wreck of a house I bought. And on the rotary in Revere is a Sozio's Appliance. So as soon as I closed on my house, I went there and cleaned it out a bit, because I had to wreck a lot of stuff, take down walls and things. It was a mess. But as soon as I got it semi-operational, I went over to Sozio's and I bought a washer, a dryer, and a refrigerator, all of them used. And I think I paid $100 or at most $200 for the refrigerator. And it was a small refrigerator, as I said, it's 16 cubic feet, 55 inches, 24 wide, 24 deep. It was just the size I needed. I'm alone. I just got to have my own stuff there, mainly my Coca-Cola at the time, since I went to Pepsi and then I went to RC, and now I'm off all of it. Anyway, so this refrigerator I've had since that time, and it was important to me because it came from Sozio's. That was significant. That was almost like, okay, I'm a real person now. I bought something from Sozio's. So anyways, that's the adventure of my well-built 34-year-old used refrigerator. It goes on. P.S. One other thing, he related to me. If you ever blow a fuse, unplug your refrigerator for 5 minutes before you put the power back on. because if it's in the middle of a compression cycle, the coils and the compressor, the other end of the coils, which are in the compressor, have to balance out. And if you interrupt it mid-cycle, they get out of balance. So if you have a power outage or a circuit breaker, I mean, if you have a power outage, it's going to be off for 5 minutes anyway. But if you just blow a circuit breaker and you're going to flip it right back on, unplug your refrigerator first for 5 minutes. I never knew that. So that's a little helpful hint. And I've learned something new after a lifetime of home repair. Happy day to you.